I wanted to make a quick video going over the similarities and differences between the Shun Classic line and the global knives that are out there. The reason I'm doing this is twofold. On the one hand, these knives are both in the same price point roughly. They're both similarly priced knives. And on the other hand, they're also both similarly well regarded knives in terms of how the public sees them. They both stand out from across the room. Many people know about Shun, many people know about global, and many people can recognize between the two compared to other knives. So a lot of times people do find themselves, because of those two things, trying to choose between Shun and global. So off the bat, let's discuss a couple of the similarities. Both Shun knives and global knives are handmade in Japan. They're both Asian-style Western knives, which means their angles are cut to a much thinner angle than most Western knives. The angles are relatively similar. The Shun is a 16-degree angle. The global is a 15-degree angle. So while the global has a little bit thinner and sharper of an edge, they're for most purposes going to be relatively similar in terms of cutting. After that, and the fact that they both have lifetime warranties, that's sort of where the similarities end. The first thing I want to discuss is the method of manufacture. Obviously, you can see both these knives look very, very different. The Shun is a more traditionally created knife. It's forged. It has a full tang going all the way through the handle, and the handle is a black pakkawood, which is actually a resin-filled and compressed wood, so it's very resilient to water damage and staining and things like that. It has really nice attention to detail. For example, the handle is actually ambidextrous, or it's asymmetrical. So it's meant for right-handed individuals, and it fits into the palm of your right hand, and it's supposed to make it much easier to use and less tiring. On the other side of the coin is obviously the very modern-looking global knife. The first thing to note is this knife does not have a full tang. It actually has no tang, and it's actually a two-piece knife. So a lot of people think it's just one piece of metal, but in fact, the blade is made separately from the handle. The handle is hollow and filled with sand just to get the proper weight they decided was correct, and then they weld it and they polish it up. So on the plus side, like I said, it gives it a very nice weight. It makes a very nice light knife. But on the other hand, this is a weak point, and while the stories are rare, there are definitely stories of people having this break along the weld point, and I think that's sort of the last thing you want to have happen to you when you're dealing with sharp knives. Next thing to discuss is the actual metal. Like I said, both knives have very similar cutting angles, but the metal that's used to make those cutting angles is actually very different. Global uses a relatively soft Chromova 18, which is a 56 to 58 hardness, while Shun uses VG Max, which is actually one step higher up than VG10 steel, which is like the gold standard in knife making. So that's about a 61 hardness. And the difference between the two, there are obviously going to be pros and cons. The pro of the Shun is that since it's much harder, it's going to hold an edge and it's going to grab onto that edge and keep it, and it's not going to dull down. It's much more resilient because it's so hard. On the opposite side of that coin is the fact that the global can take much more abuse because it is a soft metal. In my mind, though, as long as you're using proper knife skills and you're really doing things correctly, you should always want the hardest metal possible, because it grabs the edge, it holds onto the edge, and it's much less maintenance and honing and sharpening you're going to need to do down the line. Aside from that, the global, as you've seen, is just a piece of Chromova 18 that's been shaped into a blade and sharpened, while the Shun is a piece of VG Max that is then folded and folded and folded with 34 layers on either side of stainless steel, and that does two things. Number one, it gives you this gorgeous little Damascus finish, but number two, it makes it very resilient to pitting and staining and rusting and things like that. So both of these knives come with a lifetime warranty, like I said, but on top of that, the Shun also comes with free lifetime sharpening, which I've always thought is a pretty big deal breaker. This is the reason. When you're dealing with high-end knives, if you take them to a reputable sharpener, it's going to cost you roughly $5 per inch on a non-serrated blade to sharpen it. So both of these knives being 8 inches would cost you roughly $40 alone just to sharpen it. And you don't even really know what the result's going to be. Is it going to be a good knife you get back, or are you going to be one of the horror stories? You have no way of really knowing. With Shun, you send it to Shun, they look at the knife, they see any problems, they throw it away, and they give you a new one. But otherwise, you can rest easy knowing they're about to put the exact same angle back on the blade that was there when you first purchased it and when you first fell in love with the knife. So I think, especially considering the fact that it's free, it makes it a no-brainer. I'm going to put a link down to both of these below. Obviously, there are pros and cons to both, but let me know if you have any questions or comments or concerns, and otherwise I will talk to you very soon.